There we go. Right, I'm going to let everyone in.
Hey.
Tej, I might give you co-host just as well, just in case.
Yeah, sounds good.
Everything's a little slow, so I apologize if it takes me a second to like hop between screens. Okay, letting everyone in.
Hi everybody, welcome to our event this afternoon. We are just going to wait another couple of minutes just so that everybody's joined before we get started. Just while you're waiting, we've got, as we usually do, we've got a couple of polls for you to complete here, just to give us a good idea of who's joining us today and when you had your surgery. So the first question is here, how long ago did you have your surgery? So was it less than a year, between 2 and 4 years, 5+, and how do you communicate? Is it using a voice prosthesis, an electrolarynx, or I think there's another option for something else as well there?
There's
Hannah?
a few. Yeah, there's a few options.
Right, I just can only see down
Just
to
scroll down. Yeah, text-to-speech, sign language, pen and paper, or not applicable if you're
got it
friend or family, etc. And then
Lovely.
just a question about today's topic as well, I guess, around confidence and how you're currently feeling at the start of this workshop. Thought it might be nice just to kind of gauge who we've got on with us today.
Okay, lovely. So let's have a look so far at what we've got. So half of people on the call today have had their surgery more than 5 years ago, 25% less than a year. So that's a good mix. 25% of people between 2 and 4 years. So we've got a really good mix of the length of time that people have had their laryngectomy. In terms of communicating, we can see that 60% are using a voice prosthesis, 20% an electrolarynx, and 20% esophageal speech. Great, okay. Nice mix there as well.
Nice to see lots of faces.
Hi everybody. And then on to the last question. How confident do you feel in your everyday life following your laryngectomy? So 20% have said they feel very confident and 80% somewhat confident. So confident sometimes, maybe reasonably confident. Really interesting. So thank you for filling those questions out there. Okay, well, again, welcome to everybody this afternoon. Our event today is sort of going to be looking at how confident you feel having had your laryngectomy in everyday life. And we're joined by a very special guest speaker called Marc Valentine. Some of you may know Marc. Marc had his laryngectomy 2 years ago, and he's going to be sharing his experiences and some tips on how to really make you feel more confident after surgery. I'm Alison Dempster, speech and language therapist by background and now a clinical educator at ATOS Medical. So this is an open discussion session, so please feel free to ask questions or make comments as we go along. If you could put your mics on mute just to cut down on any background noise, and then you can unmute them when you want to talk to us or ask a question. Okay, you can choose to view your video or on or off, and you can raise your hand if you have a question. As I said, unmute to speak. You can also type any questions you want to ask in the chat. Okay, so just moving on to the next slide, I just need to read you this disclaimer before we get going, and to tell you that nothing in this presentation provides any diagnosis, clinical advice, indication, guide, warranty or guarantee. Nothing in this presentation can substitute individual advice or guidance from a qualified healthcare professional. You must see your clinician or qualified caregiver for advice on your condition and on products that might be appropriate for you. Please be aware we are recording this workshop, but it's just the speakers that are being recorded. Okay, so before we get going, I'll just tell you a bit more about Marc. In fact, Marc, I'm going to hand over to you and you can explain everything that you've got to say. So over to you, Marc. Thank you. Welcome.
Thanks, Alison.
My name's Marc Valentine. I had my laryngectomy 2 years and 2 weeks ago. I feel like I'm a bit of an old hat at this now, even though I'm relatively new. I'm also quite young to have a laryngectomy, so I'm going to go into the whys and wherefores of why I've got a hole in my neck in just a moment. But first of all, I just wanted to give my personal disclosure. So my previous profession before being medically retired I was a psychologist, and I was also a musical theatre actor, so I used to sing. So obviously a lot of us miss our voices, and I used to use my voice for my career entirely. So my career was either spent talking to people or singing at people. But I just want to make sure that you guys are aware that I won't be talking to you today like a therapist or an over-the-top theatre actor, a lovey. B, I'm not being paid or sponsored by ATOS for participating today at all. They just said, would you like to come along and have a chat with some other patients like yourself? And I said, yes, I'd really love to do that. A, because I think I've got a story to tell. B, and my background has helped me a great deal with my own personal confidence after becoming a laryngectomy. Where are we going? Right. Lastly, I have advanced incurable stage 4 thyroid cancer. So put it out there, I'm dying. I've got anywhere between 2 to 5 years, if I'm lucky. I'm totally cool about it, and I've utterly made my peace with it. So I have no issue whatsoever about talking about it. But I won't be talking to you like, oh, it's the end of the world, I'm dying. I am dying, we're all dying, that's life. Yeah, from the moment we're born, we're on a one-way track. So all I'm here to do is to talk to you about having confidence, being a laryngectomy. So if we go to the next slide, please. So what do I want to do today? Apart from showing my beautiful flat behind me with my birthday cards, as it was my birthday yesterday. So you can wish me happy birthday if you want to.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I won't reveal my age because, it's rude to, so I won't do that. I want to talk a little bit about my context and my journey and my timeline. How I define a lack of confidence as a person with a hole in my neck. Because I think in order to define confidence as a laryngectomy, you need to know what a lack of confidence looks like. And that's been a big part of my journey. Trying to make sense of it, why me? As I said, recognizing that lack of confidence. And then I'm going to break it down into 4 constituent parts. So sorry? Oh, no, I thought I had a question. Did I have a question there? No, okay. So breaking it then down into 4 parts, the anatomical bit. So how am I confident dealing with my daily tasks and what I see in the mirror every day? So having and gaining confidence in me and my skills. The familial bit, so behaving and being around my family. So it's those close family interactions as opposed to those big interactions. Doing the public bit, so excuse my French, but dealing with my own fears and arseholes that you meet. So these are the people who might stop, point, sort of whisper behind hands. And we've probably all had that on our journey. I just want to talk to you a bit about how I did that. And then finally, the emotional bit, because becoming a laryngectomy, I always say we're the unseen amputees. If somebody has an arm or a leg amputated, you see it straight away. But if we're wearing a Buchanan bib or a done-up shirt or a blouse with a bow at the neck or whatever, you don't see that we've had something major amputated in our lives. And your voice it's 99% of your communication. So to go from voice to altered voice, be that esophageal speech, be it laryngectomy, be it electronic means, That's a big change. So that's what I'm going to go through today. So we can flip over to the next slide. Thank you, Anna, for doing that. So the me context, some lovely pictures of me in hospital, and we've all been there a lot of times, I know. I was diagnosed with poorly differentiated thyroid carcinoma in 2020, just before the lockdown. I underwent a total thyroidectomy, a level 4 neck dissection, a laryngectomy. They took 35 lymph nodes. You know the story, you've been there. I had a lot of gullet removed, a lot of esophagus removed, and I am the person I am today. Unfortunately, because of lockdown and COVID, my particular treatment that would have saved my life was stopped by the NHS because they couldn't deliver it in a safe way. So instead of having the treatment that I should have had, instead I went through 30 fractions of external beam radiotherapy. So I'm sure quite a few of you out there have probably had head and neck radiotherapy. So you've been tied down to the table with your mask on, and you've undergone something which is pretty horrific. You go through the laryngectomy, you think, okay, I'm done with the big bit. And then all of a sudden, you go through the radiotherapy, and you don't quite realise that, wow, radiotherapy is a pretty large bit of your treatment and a scary bit too. Unfortunately, I had a PET scan in June of 2020, which confirmed I was stage 4. It spread to my bones and my soft tissues. So I've got tumours in my lungs, my skin, very weird, all thyroid tumours, but in my skin, weird, and in my bones. I had an advanced aggressive diagnosis when they did genetic testing. I had my first radioiodine therapy, which is what could have cured me, in August of 2020. The good news is it did a very good job of slowing the disease, which is great. I then had 10 fractions of external beam radiotherapy to my pelvis, because my pelvic bone is where most of my cancer spread to. That wasn't fun either. I then had another RAI, so radioiodine therapy, and then a third one in April of 2021. And then just over a month ago, I underwent a complex tumour removal and hip replacement to my right hip, because the cancer had eaten away all the bone. And I very nearly passed. So I was very, very poorly. And my body shut down. So 4 days after my surgery, the hospital I was in was full of COVID patients. So there were no spaces in intensive care. And so they turned my side room into an intensive care unit. And they fought for the best part of the day to keep me alive. But look, a month and a half later, I'm here talking to you, which is like, when I think back to those days, this is crazy and amazing, but really life-affirming. And yet so much confidence because I'm alive. Right, let's have a look at the next slide. So earlier on, I alluded to dealing with what a lack of self-confidence is. And I think the only way to identify ways of becoming more confident is to know when you're not being confident. And also when you become what I call a self-saboteur. So you start doing things that stop you from living your normal life. So just very quickly, defining that lack of self-confidence. Isolation and identity play a huge part in that, especially post-laryngectomy. When somebody takes your voice away or your vocal cords away, and you try and speak for the first time, whether it's through an electrolarynx or through a TEP valve or through esophageal speech, your voice sounds different. There will be elements of it that are really similar, which is great because your voice is created here in your nasopharynx. All that your vocal cords do is produce a vibration, which produces sound. And then the sound is used by your mouth and your nose and the cavities in your face to produce your speech, which is why even though after we've had a laryngectomy, we still have an accent. So I have an accent from the south of the UK, and I speak to people from Birmingham and Scotland, and they've all retained their accents, irrespective of how they use their speech afterwards. But that who am I piece, that took me a long time to get my head round. And until I understood who I was and realised I wasn't any different, and that's the key. I'm exactly the same person. It's just that my voice sounds a little bit different. And for those of you using a valve, so a TEP valve, your voice is sort of at 70, 80, 90% of what it was before. And a lot of people say to me, Mark, you sound like you did before, but with a sore throat. So that gave me a huge amount of confidence to go. So I don't sound as bizarre as I think I sound in my head. And I think that's a really important thing as well. That everything you hear in your head is different to what everyone hears outside of your head. So you will always sound different. You did sound different prior to your laryngectomy, but you may sound very odd and peculiar to yourself, but those listening to you will still hear you. There's a feeling of helplessness, but there's also a feeling of pushing a way out. And I don't know if anyone was like me, but after my laryngectomy, I was being offered help left, right, and centre. And I was like, no, I'm okay. I'm right, thanks. Just leave me alone. I can deal with this. It's okay. And I realised the enormous amount of help that's there for you. I'm not just talking about speech and language therapists. I'm talking about all the different charities that are set up, either for your particular cancer, or for head and neck cancer, or for laryngectomies, the different local groups you can join. So I'm a member of a Macmillan group for head and neck cancer where I live in South England. There's all these different places that I pushed back and went, no, not interested. I want to figure this out on my own. And it was only afterwards that it dawned on me that actually if I'd let the door open a little bit and let some of that help in, it would have got me to where I am today quicker than I actually got here. You are bombarded with information. So for anyone who's recently had a laryngectomy, you probably left hospital with a couple of bin bags. I did. So I had my nebulizer machine, I had my suction machine, I had paperwork for days. I had, gosh, what did I have? I didn't have these, I didn't have base plates. I had my Larry tubes. I had my HMEs. I literally left hospital with bin bags full of stuff. And I remember them sitting in my kitchen and they sat there for ages. And I'd go into them when I needed them and that was it. I didn't really want to look at them. And my husband kept saying to me, we've taken an entire piece out of your wardrobe to put all of your Larry stuff in there. Why don't you do it? I didn't want to do it because doing it meant that this was real. This was actually happening. Bear with me. A glass of Coke just to lubricate. So top tip, and you can hear the change in my voice immediately. Top tip, if you are speaking to people, Coke, when it's gone slightly flat, is really good. It's still got enough effervescence and bubbles to clean the back of your speaking valve if you're using one of those. But it also clears the mucus out of your throat as well. So it does help with your speaking. And it goes down easy because it's syrupy. So just top tip there, Coca-Cola. Or failing that fizzy water, which you can see I've got the cap off, just let it go a bit flat so you're not burping. Unless, of course, you use esophageal speech, where that might be useful. But fizzy drinks are really good for pushing down the mucus that you produce in your esophagus. So yeah, top tip. Right. I found myself cancelling and excusing myself from events and seeing people and even doing Zoom things, which is silly because I wasn't in the same room. It was in the middle of the COVID pandemic. I was in no danger. I'd find myself going, oh, actually, no, I don't really want to join that Zoom thing. And I don't want to join my friend's quiz this evening. And I'd find myself excusing myself because I looked different and because in my head I sounded different. I did find myself using WhatsApp loads, and that was my go-to. I don't have to see anyone. So I was texting using WhatsApp, Facebook instead of seeing friends. And I was using the excuse of I'm too busy. Now, I'd stopped working. I'd been retired from work because of my diagnosis. And I was using the excuse I was too busy because I had to nebulize 3 or 4 times a day. Then I had to clean my stoma. I had to make sure that my Larry tube was sterile. And all of that took hours and hours and hours out of my day. When in reality, it maybe took a couple of hours out of my day. But I was using that as an excuse. And I was letting stuff get in the way of life. So it'd be really interesting to hear from the rest of you whether you guys have been through that same process where you actually let your diagnosis get in the way of you actually living your life afterwards. And that's absolutely what I did. And if I'm honest, when I'm having a bad day, because we all have bad days, I still do it. So if for instance, my dad, my dear old dad, who bless him, still behaves like a bit of a mother hen dad. And he's quite an old man now. But he'll like text me going, "You up for a chat?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm busy nebulizing." And it's when I'm not feeling very confident and I don't really want to have a chat and I don't want to have to use my voice. So everyone has bad days. And I think it's really good to acknowledge that even when you recognize a lack of confidence and you build upon that to move forward, you're still allowed to have crap days. That's fine. If we can go to the next slide, please. So what can I do to help my confidence, and what can I do from an anatomical perspective? I learned very early on that looking in the mirror and looking inside my stoma and using the tools I was given to clean my stoma and using my brush to clean my valve and just spending some time, for want of a better word, exploring the hole in my neck was an enormous boost to me understanding who I was and then therefore becoming more confident. The picture in the top right hand corner, I don't know whether anyone else here suffers from lymphedema, where they've taken loads of lymph nodes away in your neck. But I'm just making the point that, you know, we can look dramatically bizarre, different and funny, and that's okay. And I have quite a giggle at myself because I call it my head hoop. And I wear my head hoop at night to stop loads of lymphedema in my neck. And I look ridiculous. What you don't see on that is I also have, I don't know whether you guys have got this, I've got like a neck brace full of foam beads, and that helps with lymphedema as well. So I've got that on my head hoop. I've got my lymphedema thing on, and I just look absolutely bizarre, and that's okay. And it's all right to look at yourself in the mirror and laugh and go, "Isn't that crazy? Isn't that bizarre?" So seeing is believing. Yes, it did happen. And you know what? It's not your fault. And it doesn't matter why you've had a laryngectomy. You know, whether it's cancer through smoking or whether it's cancer through eating badly or whatever it is. It's okay. It's not your fault. And that was a really big step for me in acknowledging I couldn't have done anything to stop this. And when I was diagnosed, the size of my tumor was the size of my fist. And there was nothing, absolutely nothing they could do to stop that. And it wasn't my fault. My surgeon kept saying to me, it's a bit like that scene in Good Will Hunting, if you've ever seen that film, where Robin Williams is saying to the main character, "It's not your fault, it's not your fault." And that's a really important thing to acknowledge. It's not your fault there's a hole in your neck. If anything, it's good, it saved your life. It's given you a second chance. So get used to seeing your stoma, get used to using your tools, get used to having your torch and just having a good old look. This could sound really bizarre. I like counting the rings in my trachea. like, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and those rings of cartilage I can see when I'm cleaning my stoma. It's not like any of them are going to disappear overnight. But it's just like, right, okay, that's part of me. It's inside me, but that's okay. It's a bit like looking inside your mouth. And that's how I treat my stoma. It's like looking inside my mouth. There's just another hole south of my mouth, if that makes sense. And it's about integrating your daily care into your routine. So you brush your teeth twice a day. You probably clean your stoma 2, 3, 4 times a day. Certainly if you've got a valve, when you eat, I clean my valve after eating to brush through the residue of the food. So it's just about pushing that into your daily routine and being okay with it. And this sounds silly, but touch it, it won't bite. Just going to demonstrate. It took me months to do. It took me ages to do. I was terrified I was going to break something if I touched it. But you know what? Surgeons are really clever. They're clever guys. That's why they get paid loads of money. And that hole is really quite stable and quite safe. So it doesn't bite. Get used to handling it. And the important thing about getting used to handling it as well is you notice changes to it. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever had an infection in your stoma, so you may have had tracheitis, which is like getting a cold in your stoma. And I've had MRSA in my stoma. I've had other staph infections in my stoma as well. And by getting used to handling it and having confidence in doing that, I was able to spot the changes in it, say to my GP, there's something wrong. And then they did the swab and said, yeah, you've got an infection. So that's really, really important to have the confidence to be hands-on with your stoma in order to understand any changes to it. And I'm not being paid by ATOS. Please use an HME, guys. There's something that people have to get used to, right? And I remember laying in hospital right after my laryngectomy with my Larry tube in, and they popped an HME in. And I was waving my arms going, mouthing, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. Not realizing that in waving my arms around, mouthing, I can't breathe, I was actually breathing. Because if I wasn't breathing, I wouldn't have been able to do any of that. They just take getting used to, and the different resistances take getting used to. So today, I'm using the HME. So that one there, so I'm using that one there. It's got a wider set of holes. So the resistance is lower. It means that I can be more animated with you, which is why I'm wearing it today. What I normally wear at home, though, when I'm at home on my own, is the grey boxed home HME. And I wear that when I'm just pottering around the house, doing the washing up, a little bit of light housework, watching telly, looking after my dog, that kind of thing. If I go out in public or if I have friends over, I then move to the lighter grey HME, the Protect. And I know a lot of people have problems with the Protect HME. Again, it's about getting used to it, and the best way to get used to a new HME and a new level of resistance is to do it when nobody else is around, is to literally sit back in your chair, put the new HME in and breathe slowly, and do that for 10 to 15 minutes and get your body used to the new resistance. And as I've said, they use an HME to cover the stoma, especially in these times of COVID. 1 in 16 people at the moment have got it. Nobody's telling us that because there's a dreadful war going on. And Will Smith did a very stupid thing last night. Those are my views, not the views of ATOS, by the way. But yeah, wear your Protect when you go out in public if you're used to using a Protect, because your Protect is basically one of these. It's a mask. What you can do, of course, is you can wear another HME, a different type, with a mask over the top. And for that, I've got a little elastic band that joins the two hoops together that keeps the mask safe around my neck. Also, when I go out in public, I still wear one of these over my face as well. Even though I know the outflow of pressure is out of my nose and out of my mouth, so I shouldn't be taking in any viral particles, I still wear a mask over my face when I go out because it's the right thing to do. The other thing you can do as well is to wear a Buchanan bib. So wear one of those over your HME and you're just doubling up the level of protection. And when you feel protected, you feel confident. You can go out there and do stuff. So that's the anatomical bit. If we flip over to the next page, that's Emma.
I was just going to pop in there. I think Steve mentioned about he's got an endoscope which he plugs into his mobile phone and he can use to see clearly into his stoma, which I thought was great.
That is cool, Steve. You need to let me know where you got that from because I'm all up for having one of those.
Right, you can get them on eBay or any of the places. Just look up endoscope. And it's like you can stick it down your drains, but you can also use it into your stoma, and you can see right inside your lungs. If you've got a bit of phlegm you can't clear.
That is amazing. I'm loving the fact that we're using an endoscope for sticking down a plug hole and sticking it in your stoma. That is brilliant. I'm going to... Sorry, Steve, go on.
Because it only goes in your stoma, you don't have to re-sterilise it every time. And they're only £10 each.
Are you on commission, Steve?
No, but I do a little bit of work for ATOS. I repair the electrolarynxes.
Wow.
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know that. That's brilliant. I'm going to definitely have to get myself one of those afterwards because occasionally, like many of you guys, I'll wake up in the morning and you instinctively know you've got a blockage somewhere in your lungs and you know it's a really thick mucousy plug and it's like this is going to be a challenging one to deal with today, and you'll be doing all your huffing with your diaphragm and loads of nebulizing and maybe squirting some saline bullets down in there to stimulate the cough reflex, but I'm absolutely going to have to get myself a little endoscope. That sounds amazing. Well done, Steve. And also really interesting to hear that you repair the electrolarynxes for ATOS. That's really cool. Pop over to the next one. Right, okay, so we've looked at how do I become a bit more confident with what I do around myself. And now we've moved to the familial bit. And this is what I mean by this is small gatherings. And small gatherings are very different to larger gatherings. You probably feel a bit safer at a small gathering at the moment. One of the things I do with a small gathering, so for instance, I've had my birthday over the weekend and I've seen friends and I very politely said to them, I really want to see you, but can you do me a favour? Can you do a lateral flow before I see you? So all of my friends did a lateral flow and I felt a lot more confident going to see them, even though I was wearing a Protect HME and a Buchanan bib, just to protect myself and also to protect them as well. But just asking your friends and family if you're going to see them, do a lateral flow. I don't know whether you've done what I've done, but I've basically gone in every 3 days to the government website and gotten as many LFTs as I can. What I also did as well was I reached out to my local MP, and my local MP is Peter Kyle. And I said to him, you know, I'm a local resident. The government's making it more challenging for people like me to get lateral flow tests. Is there any way you can help? And 3 days later, I had a knock on the door, and my local MP was stood there with a carrier bag full of boxes of lateral flows that they don't use in the office. So I was really chuffed. So use those connections as well to get your LFTs. And I know there's only a couple of days left. I think, well, we can get them for free. And if anyone knows what the government is doing, and I don't know, Hannah, whether you know, what is the government doing about people like ourselves who really need to use LFTs or ask people to use LFTs? Is there anything afoot with regards to us not having to pay for those? Do we know that yet?
I don't know at this point in time. I think it is being pushed for, but yeah, I don't have any updates currently. But as soon as we do, or if we know anything, we'll definitely share that.
Okay, cool. So familiar with it. So the fear of groups. The other thing about groups is speaking and being heard. And, we've just heard Steve very clearly on his electrolarynx, but 5 or 6 people around Steve all talking at the same time, or somebody with a speech valve like myself, or somebody using esophageal speech, and all of a sudden your voice gets lost in translation, gets lost in the melee. And I found that very, very difficult when I started to socialize again in small groups. So what I did was I would turn up early to functions. So if I knew I was so, and I did this on my birthday last week. So my birthday always spans a weekend. So it's always a 4-day affair, just because I love having birthdays. So on Friday night, I saw my friends. I made sure I was the first one to arrive, which meant that I could say hello and have a chat with people as they arrived, instead of trying to do it in a group, if that makes sense. So I was able to get my point across, have a chat, ask how people were, and do all those social niceties that you normally do one-on-one as they arrived. And it meant I didn't have to fight for airtime, because my friends, most of them are actors. And you know what? Actors love the sound of their own voice, me included. So that's a challenging situation to get into from a familial bit. There's some really good things you can do to help yourself in those situations. Number 1, don't eat before you speak. Now, some of these things are going to be invited to dinner, so you're going to have to talk, yeah? And you're going to have to eat. But what most of you will do is you'll realise, especially those of you who speak with esophageal speech or a valve, after you've swallowed food, it takes a while because you no longer have the peristalsis, so the rhythmic movement of your esophagus to move your food down into your tummy. It's just gravity you're relying on to push things down. And liquids is, if you're going to have a conversation, leave it to well after you've had your meal. And I always say to my friends, look, if I'm quiet while you're eating, A, it gives me the advantage of being able to listen to everything, but B, it's because I need the food to move down. And you need to understand, if I try and speak, the food will try and make its way back up the esophagus as it vibrates, and you end up with a load of reflux. And that's not pretty for you. It's not pretty for anyone else. So try not certainly to do that. I've just seen a message pop up on the screen from Steve, and we'll deal with that in just a moment. Try not to speak until at least 30 minutes after you've eaten, because your tummy will try and regurgitate some of the food that you've swallowed. And I know, been there, done that, and it's pretty gross, and it all gets stuck around your valve, and you can't talk. Now, Steve was just saying that his electrolarynx isn't loud enough in a group situation. I wonder if there are any other people on today using an electrolarynx that have that problem. And if so, has anyone found a solution? No, Steve, I don't know whether you wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, I got a voice amplifier, but when you use that, it's like using a phone or a megaphone. So everybody in the room hears it. You can't itemize against slight variations. So it's either quiet and you can't even order a drink in a pub, or you're shouting over everyone.
Steve, can I just ask you, have you tried playing about with the volume button on the electrolarynx?
Yeah, I repair them. So I've done the volume and the tone, so I can increase it. I can change it up a bit, so it's a different tone, so it can get heard easier.
Yeah, but that's still, I take it, it's not loud enough for certain situations that you're in.
As he was saying, when you get to a point that he can't hear me now, he's struggling, he's putting his ear to the mic, but you can't make yourself heard, you can't raise it just a little bit to over talk the people talking at the side of you.
Yeah.
And then I just turn around and walk away rather than try to interact. And that is the frustrating bit for me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no, and I totally get that, because even with speech valve, you're limited by the width of your valve as to the volume of your voice. So I'm lucky I've got a very wide valve, which means if I need to, I can really raise my voice. Yeah. But when I had a much narrower valve, I couldn't do that. So I'm luckier from that perspective. What I do though is has anyone else used your card? So when I'm in a bar, there's the ATOS card, which is I breathe through my neck, which basically says I'm not deaf, don't shout at me, but we need to communicate in a different way. So there's that. Or I've still got my original countrywide laryngectomy card as well. And both of them, basically, when I'm in a bar, I'll give one of those over and go, you might not hear me, especially if it's loud and crowded. What I tend to do is I use my iPhone. So if I'm ordering drinks, I'll go into notes on my iPhone, or whatever phone you've got, and I'll just put my bar order on there, and I'll just give that to the guy and say that's what I want. And then we work it that way. But Steve, I totally get it.
Can I just say, I use text to speech on the mobile, and you can turn that up so you can actually shout it on your phone, but you still got to have time to type in your answer and then present it.
Yeah, no. I was going to say text to speech is really good, and I believe it's a free app as well, isn't it? So you don't have to pay for it.
Someone in the background there has got a really bad cough. Oh, it was the dog.
Yeah, that's my dog, unfortunately, barking in the background. Yep. So apologies for that. Okay. But yeah, text to speech is really good, and I used that when I had radiotherapy because I couldn't speak. So that was my go-to app on my phone. Also, in the back of your grey grab bag, there's like a writing slate. I don't know whether anyone's used that. I used that recently when I was in hospital and I was really ill, and my valve failed whilst I was in hospital. So I had to put my plug in. I couldn't speak. And I used that writing tablet to communicate with my nursing staff as well. So there are ways around it. They're not the best. Text to speech is probably the best for loudness and volume. But as I say, in smaller groups, what I tend to do is either greet people and talk to them as they come in or pull them away. Other tips very quickly for confidence in small groups. Always have your bottle of water to clear the mucus from your esophagus. That does get really annoying. You've seen me drinking my Coca-Cola. I've also got my bottle of water as well, because the more you speak, the more your esophagus, your food tube vibrates. That's a mucous membrane. And the more it vibrates, the more your body says it's getting sore. And so it produces mucus. And so you need to wash that away, because it changes the tonality and your volume of your voice as well. Was there somebody coming through there who wants to say something? No? Okay, cool.
If I could just say, I got a boogie board.
What's that?
A boogie board. It's like an A4 platform where you write on it with a pencil, but it's LED, so it writes white on a blackboard. and then you just press a button and it wipes it, so you can just use the same over and over again.
I know what you mean. Does it actually scroll the message for you as well?
You write the message or patterns or pictures, and when you press the button, it wipes into a black and green again, and then you just write again on the same piece.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Sue's just commented to say she also uses a boogie board all the time, and that she can't speak, but the NHS through Lincolnshire Country Council supplied her with an iPad and a speaking app called Predictable.
Wow.
Amazing. So again, talk to your local council and MPs by the sounds of it is a good.
And yeah, I'm going to jump in there if I may, actually, Anna, and just say, talking about sources of help, your local council are a lot better than you might think. For instance, I didn't think I'd get anything. I have a bus pass now. So because of my laryngectomy, I've got a bus pass. I also have a disabled badge. I didn't know I could get any of these things. But actually, if you dig deep and you actually speak to services like Macmillan, they can give you loads of help and detail on filling those things in for your council, and then actually getting the help that you need. So I was quite surprised at the scope of help. Although I'm annoyed, I've never been given an iPad. I quite fancy a new one, so I might see what they can do for me. But yeah, that's amazing that they do that. That's really, really good. Very, very quickly, just finishing off this slide. Take your time. Don't apologize for your voice. So whether it's electrolarynx, esophageal, or TEP valve, do not apologize for your voice. Your voice is you, and it's up to people to get used to your new voice, because you've taken a while to get used to it. If they want to remain in a situation where they communicate with you, then they need to get used to it as well. And I start conversations over the phone with utility companies by explaining I'm a laryngectomy. Do you know what that is? It means I don't have a voice box. I do have a different sounding voice. So if you don't understand what I'm saying, please say so. And then I can adjust the way that I'm talking, either slower, louder, whatever you need me to do. So don't be afraid of it. Don't apologize for it. And you can prepare people for it. Right, let's swiftly move forward. So next slide, please, Anna. Right, dealing with big situations in the public. We look different. And that, let's flip back. There we go, we look different. And that difference isn't usual. It's not like a wheelchair. It's not like seeing an arm in a cast. We have something attached to our neck if we're wearing an HME. And if you're wearing the Protect HME, it's like having a hockey puck attached to your neck. You can't miss it unless you cover it up. And people will notice us. And that's something we have to deal with. And that's something we need to build confidence around. And there will be arseholes who point and go, that's gross, that's disgusting. And I know that because that happened to me. Last year, my first time out of the house after lockdown, I went shopping in my local shopping centre, and a young lady was walking past me, and she felt confident enough to stop, to point at my neck and turn to her boyfriend and go, oh, that's disgusting. And I was like, right, how do I deal with this? And I just stared at her. I didn't say anything. And what I did do was I had to hold my husband back, because my husband was ready to launch at her and give her a piece of his mind. And I shook my head and I went, no, don't, because it's her ignorance, you know. And it's the same as pointing at somebody in a wheelchair. We can't help where we are. This is a part of who we are now, and I will not apologize for looking slightly different, because this has given me a second chance at life. Without this, I'd have been dead a long time ago, 2 years ago. I was told without this operation, I'd had 2 weeks to live. So I'm not going to apologize for it, but there will be arseholes. But try not to let their ignorance get to you. Okay, because actually the majority of people will notice it, but will ignore it and carry on with you. Choose your settings. So if you're going to go to a big party like a ball or something, choose your setting. There are different levels of public. So when you first start to socialize in larger groups, make sure it's with people who know you and know what you've been through. And then think about more unfamiliar settings like the pub or an outing to like a park or a theme park or whatever, or just walking around your local shopping centre, and think about the clothing you wear too, whether you want to hide this, which gives you confidence, or whether you want to show it off. Now, for me, I always wear a V-neck t-shirt. So if I just do that, you can say I always wear a V-neck t-shirt, because then I've got access to my stoma, because we all know something will happen. We'll cough, the back of our HME will get covered in gunk, then we'll have to grab our grab bag, and we'll have to go and change our HME and clean our stoma. So I choose to wear V-necks, and I also choose to, more often than not, just go with base plate and HME, so it protects HME when I'm out in public. And I've had to get to that place. So before, I used to wear a bib, but I used to find a bib and an HME was too much breathing wise. So then I'd wear like an ascot or a neckerchief, but then I find myself fiddling with that. So in the end, I was like, oh, do you know what? I'm just going to go with it. However, to start off, try the 3 C's technique. It's what I did, which was concealment can be comfort that leads to confidence. So if you don't want to show off your stoma, don't, and that's fine. Build your confidence from that. And gradually what you'll find is it becomes easier to unconceal than to conceal. And that's where I got to on my journey. It was easier just to have this open to the air, for people to see it, for people to be able to ask questions. So I'm just going to tell you, I was at a pub recently and there was a guy staring at my neck. And you know, when it's like, it's so obvious, it's ridiculous. And I didn't want to catch his gaze. And I said to my half, that guy can't stop staring at my neck. And he said, why don't you stare back? So I did. And he caught my stare and he looked away. And in the end, I walked over to him and I went, do you want to ask me some questions about this? Because you're obviously interested. And he laughed and he went, I'm so sorry. He said, it's just, I'd never seen one of those before. And I wondered how it worked. And that gave me a real insight into what people are normally thinking. Most people are wondering, how does that work? So how are you different? What's underneath it? And it's more curiosity than being nasty. So in that situation, I actually went, well, look, we're outside, so I'll show you what my stoma looks like. It's a hole in my neck that lets me breathe, and the button on here lets me talk. And we kicked off a conversation around that. And as I've got further down my journey, I've been able to do what I call going alone. And going alone is going out and doing the shopping on my own, taking the dog for a walk, and being really confident to the point where when I was in hospital recently and I was really poorly, and it was about 4 days after I came out in intensive care, I had an email from the local council tax saying they were going to take me to court, sending me a court summons if I didn't pay X amount now. And that's just because I do all the money things in our household. And whilst I was in hospital, it didn't get done. And so I ended up having an hour-long conversation with a chap over speakerphone from my local council tax, and screaming at him initially because I was really angry, screaming at him down the phone with a laryngectomy, which isn't a good thing to do because it wears out your voice really quick. But we've now built a rapport in that conversation where whenever I go through, I ask for his name specifically. I know what days he works, and he's the only person I talk to. So from that real difference of opinion and argument has actually come a relationship that I now have with this person at the council for my council tax who deals with all of my issues. So going in alone and having that confidence and that feeling of I can go back to safety really easily. So I can stick on a bib if I don't feel confident, or I can turn around and go home if I don't feel confident, or I can stay in my car if I don't feel confident. That's fine. So having that point of safety is key, I think, for you then moving forward and having more confidence. And if we can just switch over to the next slide.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to say there's a couple of comments there in the chat which are really, really interesting. I don't know if you want to have a look. Jonathan saying about how his work's arranged a panic alarm should he need help, as he can't call for help, which is amazing. And Mike's now out and proud after about 6 months of continuously covering it up. He loves it when people ask about it and he likes to share.
It's really interesting, actually, Mike. I'm a gay man. I've already mentioned I've got a husband. I came out when I was 18, and then I came out as a laryngectomy last year. So it was kind of I can do this now. I know I'm going to get people who ask about it. That's fine. But yeah, there's kind of like, there is a feeling of pride in being able to go, okay, I feel confident enough to do this now. So yeah, no, absolutely. Being out and proud, Mike, well done. It's really cool. And then just very briefly, I just want to talk about the emotional. Oh, Steve, I find kids stare a lot. So I'm going to stick my psychologist hat on. When kids are exposed to new stimuli, the first thing that they use to process the stimuli is their visual sense. So that will happen. They will stare. It's a bit like kids not seeing somebody in a wheelchair before. They will stare. And it's about your level of acceptance of that, going, actually, children are going to go, what is that? I've never seen those before.
If you read the rest of it, when the kids stare, if they hear the electrolarynx, that scares them. So I say, I've lost my voice. It's somewhere on the floor. If you see it, can you let me know? And it changes their mental approach. So now they're going to look for something, which is a game, and it makes them more accepting.
I love that, Steve. That's brilliant. I've got another friend who uses an electrolarynx, and he tells kids now that he's part robot. So he's got a robot voice now. And the kids are like, oh my God, that's amazing. So he's broken the barrier by using sort of popular culture to say,
I told them I used to live with 2 Daleks. So I can exterminate. If they, so
That's
they
great.
can understand that.
that is awesome. I absolutely love that. My 2 nieces, actually, they find it quite funny when I do what's called a stoma fart. So if I'm not wearing a base plate and I'm just using my thumb over my stoma, and we'll have all done this at some point, you get that fart sound a bit like when you used to put your hand under your armpit. And my 2 nieces go, can you do the fart sound, Uncle Mark? And I'm like, oh, okay. So I've just done one there, actually, just by breathing in too strongly for my HME. And they love it when I do that. So yeah, it's really interesting the ways that we get children acclimatized to something new like that, but absolutely turn it into a game, make it a fun thing and something that isn't scary for them. And my 2 nieces now, they're 5 and 7, and they say to me, I don't remember your old voice anymore. So they're just used to it now and they're fine with it. There's no problem. Right, very quickly, the emotional bit. So I'm having a bit of a dig here at ASOS, so my apologies. We've all seen the pictures of Jens our Danish cousin, playing tennis and running a marathon as a Larry, in the ATOS brochure with his energy HME, his blue HME. I've got to be honest, I've never used one of them. And I've never used one of them. One, because I've got cancer in my hips and I can't play tennis. But two, because of COVID. So I've never felt confident enough to use one yet. But what those pictures don't show is how hard internally it is of being a real Larry, especially psychologically and emotionally. And I'm not going to be a psychologist now. I'm just going to talk about my experience. So as I said right in the beginning, everyone's out of shit day. And the best thing I ever did was engage with a counsellor after I became a laryngectomy, because I needed to get a lot of things off my chest. And the first thing personally for me was I'm never going to sing again. Even though I know there's a laryngectomy choir, I used to sing lead roles in Western musicals. It's never going to happen again. Unless somebody knows a composer who wants to write a musical for me, which is fine, that's great. But I'm never going to sing like I did. You know, I'm never going to be a tenor again. I'm never going to sing Sondheim or Lloyd Webber or, you know, whatever your favourite musical is. I'm never going to do that. And that was really tough. And that was a process of letting go of something. And so I engaged with Macmillan and I engaged with their counselling service very early on in that journey. And that really, really helped me talking to somebody about that. And having an outlet to a stranger is really useful. I couldn't talk to my husband about it, and I couldn't talk to my family about it, because all I ended up coming round to is, you don't know how I feel. Weirdly, with a stranger, you don't have to say that. I don't know why, you just don't. And you can pour your heart out to them. So I used Macmillan. You can use your GP, your local hospice. If you've got an employee assistance program at work, you can also get therapy services through them as well. But there's also a piece here about acknowledging it's difficult for our loved ones too, because they see us every day and they have to get used to our stoma, they have to get used to our voices. And I've actually ended up with the point where I've got my partner used to being able to touch my stoma. And the reason I've done that is because I'm terminally ill, and there will come a time where I won't be able to do the stuff that I do every day. So because of that, I've got my husband now used to being able to clean my valve for me if I need that done, and being able to clean my stoma and set up my nebulizer and doing all that. And that's different. That's, you know, there's a difficulty there emotionally. And a lot of these outreach services like Macmillan will also give therapy and that kind of emotional support to your partner as well. So it's really worth engaging with your partner and saying, you know, how do you feel about this? What do you need from this to make you feel better and more confident with this? Pre-plan to enjoy your time. So it takes a little bit more time for us to make sure we have everything we need to have a safe time. And so I'm just going to show you my ATOS grab bag, and I use what's called the rule of two. And the rule of two is I have two of everything I need in here. I have two HMEs, two base plates, two brushes for my valve. I have 2 packets of swabs to clear my laryngectomy. And I've basically got 2 of everything I need in this bag. This bag is my grab bag, which means it's ready anytime I need it. So if my husband says we're going for dinner, I can grab it and go and not worry about, oh God, what I need to take with me. So this is a bit like a friend of mine's pregnant, said it's a bit like having your hospital bag of having a baby. And I guess it kind of is. And I've got everything ready in my ATOS grab bag. So this is really useful. Use it. Keep it in a place where everyone knows where it is. And then if you have to go to hospital, or if it's good stuff and you're going out on a date, date night, whatever, make sure you take this with you. Because I said before, you're always going to end up coughing and having those moments where you need to change something. So grab your greatest grab bag. Then finally, we all have setbacks, and setbacks can be a failed valve using a valve. It can be an infection. It can be all sorts of things. And sometimes they take us all the way back to the beginning of our journey, and they really knock our confidence, especially when we're unable to speak again for a while. And what I'm saying is it's okay to go back to that point, but have a ladder to get you back to where you're confident again. Know what it is, know what your keys are to unlock the door to get you back through to being confident, and know how to use those skills to push you through. And then I think I've got a final slide, or a final couple of slides. So basically, I hope I've been able to help today. You guys have already done the hardest thing. You've had a laryngectomy. Most people will never have to go through what you've been through. And for some of us are still going through, which makes you already confident in my book. You've gone through one of the most, I think, traumatic surgeries there is, and you've lived to tell the tale. You've come out the other side. You've learned how to speak again, be it esophageally with a valve or with an electrolarynx. And I think that makes you enormously confident to begin with, before you even start to think about how do I be more confident in public. So my best to you on my journey. I wish you the greatest of luck. And then we're just going to go through a couple of slides, which gives you some detail on some extra services that can help you out. So I don't know, Anna, whether you want to walk us through these.
I think Alison might be doing that.
Yep, I can do that. Thanks very much, Mark. That was so thought-provoking, and it was amazing for you to share all your information and your strategies with us. So thank you so much. We're really grateful that you spoke to us today. Yeah, as Mark said, you can access further support from our customer care team here at ATOS. There is a website address and phone number there, and you can reach a member of our customer care team on either of those. We also have a specialist nursing team that can be a great source of support and information for you. And of course, we have our regular MyLife online events, and some upcoming topics include a patient panel, being active, and traveling after surgery. Okay, so we've just got a little survey here before we finish. The first, we've got some additional resources to support you as well. We just have
some of the charities that Mark was mentioning, Macmillan and Age UK. Just some links there for you that might be.
Every Mind Matters. We've also got Macmillan Cancer Support, Samaritans, the Cancer Laryngectomy Trust, Cancer Focus, and the Swallows. So these are all great sources of support for you.
If anyone would like a copy of this, let us know and we can send you this slide.
Great. So just looking at the survey, it's great to know that 100% of you found that the topic today in the workshop was useful to you. So that's amazing. We're clearly doing something right. And then would you recommend MyLife events to a friend? Again, 100% said yes. So great feedback there. Sorry, Hannah.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, do we have any more questions for Mark? I think there might have been one just thrown in the chat about sleep, and if anyone has problems with sleep and how they've resolved that. I know Steve said he's finally worked out a way after 5 years. I don't know if he wants to share what that was, what changed your sleep for the better. But
yeah, I can do. Every time I recline straight back, I get a problem with the phlegm in the back of the throat because of the position of my valve. So I can never lie back. So even trying to lean back in bed, I can never ever do that. And about a month ago, I laid on my left side, and where the food is in the stomach and everything, I always get acid reflux. So the SLT team prescribed me Gaviscon and Vans, and it's the only one that's worked for me. So I take 2 of those, and then I can lie my head on a pillow, but only on the left-hand side. And the food in the stomach, I don't eat after 9, and I go to bed at midnight, so the stomach is nearly empty. But on the left-hand side, you're not putting food up your esophagus.
Yeah, good to
Where on your right-hand side you do. So if people have problems, if they lay on the left-hand side, slightly inclined, at least you can get a couple of hours of good sleep without feeling sick.
That's amazing advice, because this is a problem for so many people, isn't it? So just to have some tips like that, Steve, is really, really helpful. Thank you.
Well, you've got my number and my details, and I work for ASOS in Nottingham, and they have all my details. So if anyone wants, you can pass them on to me, and I will talk to them.
That's great. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thank you for that, Steve. Really helpful.
I was just going to add, for me, using the night HME, I have a problem where I'm really prone to chest infections, and I produce a lot of phlegm. And moving to the night HME, because it fits with the stability base, so I've got a deep stoma. I don't know whether you can see that, but it is quite deep.
Yeah.
Because all the new HMEs fit with the daytime range of base plates. The night HME is the first time I've been able to wear it, and it makes an enormous difference to what I cough up in the morning. So literally 80% of it's gone. So I'm coughing up 20% of what I was only about 6 months ago. So when you guys introduced the range and I started to use the night HME, it was a godsend. I was like, that and doing what Steve said, lay on your left-hand side. And if you can take it, lay on a couple of pillows to keep you slightly upright. That stops all the reflux. And another great tip that Steve alluded to, eat your dinner in the evening as early as possible. I won't eat anything after 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
So after 7 o'clock, that's it. The only thing that goes down my gullet is liquids, which stops any kind of regurgitation, because often with our surgery, you get the pull up of the stomach through the little sphincter in your diaphragm, which gives you a little hiatus hernia, which is why so many of us suffer from really bad reflux. And just to add to Steve's point, talk to your GP about taking either something like Gaviscon. So instead of paying for it at Boots or your local chemist, you can get it prescribed. So if you've got cancer, you won't have to pay for it. But also things like PPIs, proton pump inhibitors, reduce the amount of acid in the stomach and stop that reflux. And one of the major causes of premature valve failure is acid reflux, eroding the flap on the valve.
Yeah.
So getting that under control lengthens the lifetime of your valve. Yeah. I was going through one every 2 weeks at one point, and now I get 6 to 8 weeks out of them.
If you can have a word with the speech and language team, they write to your GP and say, give them Gaviscon and Vans. It's a totally different combination to the normal Gaviscon, where normally the antacids don't work. The Advance is the only one I've found that doesn't cause problems and is safe for the valve and the esophagus.
Also, the other thing, Steve, I was going to say to add to that as well is a lot of people don't realise that they actually have a thrush infection.
Yeah.
I had one in hospital. I've not had one before.
Yeah.
And so I prescribed nystatin, and that also lengthens the lifetime of the valve. You can opt often have thrush on the back of your valve and not realise it at all. So again, speak to your salt team and they should be able to help.
If you put nice tatting on a brush and clean the valve, but also if you take a teaspoonful and swallow it, it clears the esophagus and the back of the valve as well, and that is nice tatting.
Right. So again, speech and language therapy therapist or your GP about that.
Some great advice there. Thanks very much. I'm really pleased, Mark, that you are finding the night HME is cutting your coughing down and these horrible pulmonary symptoms that you get. That's really good to know, because that HME is so high in humidification. That's the intention of it. So that is fantastic. Really good to hear. Okay, does anybody have any more questions? We're running a little bit over. We've gone over by about 16 minutes, but I'm happy to hang on for another couple of minutes if anybody wants to ask anything or make any comments just before we finish.
Yeah, feel free to unmute.
I apologise for interrupting so
No,
much.
not at all.
No, Steve, it's an open workshop. We want people to participate. So everyone else, feel free to unmute and join in as you feel.
I was going to say, I think it's very important that people hear somebody on a webinar using an electrolarynx. So Steve, you're the first person I've heard of a webinar using one, and you are clear as a bell.
Yeah.
Right, this is an emote, but I do have the older ones available.
The emote's the one where you can change the tone.
Yes, you can. You can change the pitch of the emote, so it just makes you sound a bit more natural. You can move the pitch up and down as you would do before your surgery, and put stress on different words. Change the.
I just want to say I really enjoyed your talk. It really was good. Thank you.
That's great, Anne. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
That one doesn't work. It's on a battery. It's one of the old electrolarynxes. They are very mechanical, and this one is smoother, a bit like a Rolls Royce instead of a Mini.
That's a good way to put it.
Get that.
Everybody loves a Rolls Royce.
Although I used to have a Mini, so they're not that bad.
Not at all.
They can still go the distance.
Yeah, both good cars. Okay, so if nobody else has anything else that they want to add today, I just wanted to let you know that we'll be giving away some free products to support you. We are giving away a free clothing cover that can be placed over your HME. All you need to do is contact our team at ATOS or fill out the form, which we are going to put in the chat, and you can receive that cover, stoma cover. So yeah, so that is that's that. We're going to pop that in the chat now. I think the link for that form that you can fill in and spread it. So if nobody's any more questions, again, I want to say thank you for such a tremendous session. Thanks to everybody who's commented and shared their experiences, and a huge thank you to you, Mark, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Have a lovely afternoon, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, it was a great presentation.
Cheers, Steve, take care.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for coming today, everyone.